So, Geometry Dash 2.2 has been out for about a month now, and most people have already familiarized themselves with the new official level, Dash. Overall, it's an awesome level, with a great song, fun gameplay, and it shows off almost everything this 7-year update has to offer. But what do I think of it? You know, the guy who makes all those videos about reviewing Geometry Dash levels, where I do all sorts of fun stuff, like complain a bit more, and pitch stupid ideas for the game that will never end up at— Oh wait, you actually can see locked stuff in the icon kit now. Yeah, if you've watched my videos from the past year or two, it's pretty clear that I complain a lot over things that really don't matter. And I know some people like that, but I can't help but feel guilty about it. Because at the end of the day, I love Geometry Dash. It's a brilliantly designed game with a super talented community. There's so much it does right, and I want to share my love for that, not my hatred for its minor flaws. So from here on out, positive vibes only. Here's everything I love about the sideways spider part in Dash. Thanks for watching. Okay, so Dash is one heck of a level. It introduces tons of new things that have never been seen before, and makes for an experience that's very different from the previous 21 levels. In this video, I'll be breaking down the whole level and discussing what it does right, and what I think could have been improved. There will be lots of things that I criticize, but that's because I think it serves as useful information for creators. For the most part, I'll try to keep my feedback respectful because I still think the level is really good. So right away, the level kicks off with a ton of energy. As you hit this red orb, some platforms fly up into place, there's a cool shockwave effect, and most importantly, the song's melody starts up. It's an extremely strong opening that sets the theme for the whole level and makes you feel awesome about it. Even though a yellow orb would have worked fine here, I love the use of the red one since it's the most powerful orb, and that perfectly matches the strength of which the level starts up. Keeping up with this energy, you're thrusted into the first game mode change just a couple seconds after the level begins. This is by far the quickest transition in any official level, and it contrasts most other ones which wait for a drop or some sort of significant change to the music. It does make it a little inconsistent with older levels, but not in a way that actually matters since it keeps things a lot more exciting. If you played Finger Dash or touched the spider at all, this part is pretty easy because it's meant to be. It takes advantage of the spider's quick movements to sync perfectly with the music. Take a listen. And then, a second or two after changing, you're right back to the cube game mode. In this case, the spider isn't meant to be its own section of the level, rather it's a quick add-on to the cube part to complement the music in a way that feels good to play. By the way, it probably goes without saying, but this level is gorgeous visually. Even though it's not a pixelated game, the pixel blocks look extremely good and give the level a ton of personality. I swear, these blocks are so detailed it almost feels like cheating. I just wish they had better middle tiles because, like, where are they? Do I have to fill everything with a solid color? This level also has so many tiny details, and I want to take a second to admire them since each and every one was placed by hand. There's this monster swinging in the cage, smoke and bubbles coming out of the lava, glowing particles on the blocks, explosions on the ground, little sparkles on the spikes, so much that really doesn't need to be there, but it is. Also, nearly everything interacts with the player in some way. Almost every surface glows as you touch it, and many of them also move or rotate a little bit. I swear, this level has more personality than I do. Anyways, there's one teeny tiny problem with all of this. The level looks good, but in a lot of cases it's sacrificing communication, things that really need to be shown, but aren't. Don't get me wrong, the level has a very clear path it wants you to follow, but the real problem is everywhere else. Take these blue orbs at the start of the level, for example. It's obvious that if you don't hit the second one, you'll die, but how? Maybe you'll crash into this wall? Nope, you simply hit an invisible spike. I know it's your fault for messing that up, but it highlights the problem of Geometry Dash becoming increasingly unstructured. In the early levels, you jump on blocks and die to spikes. It could not be easier to understand. But once you reach levels like Dash, there are far less rules. For the most of it, blocks are still blocks and spikes are still spikes, but they don't have to be. There's nothing visible here, but you die anyway. Or remember this wall from Geometry Dash Sub-Zero? It looks like it kills you, but it doesn't have to. This is a problem that extends throughout the entire level. For example, in this spider part alone, there are 3 spots that look safe visually, but all kill you for going there. Again, you should know better, but why not communicate it with spikes or something? It also looks like you can fall off this ledge to skip 2 clicks, but in reality, a fireball jumps up and snipes you. It's not the best solution, but it definitely is one. I don't have that much of a preference on it, so come to your own conclusions. By the way, what's up with the filter for this part? Like, why does your icon invert colors? Generally, shaders are really good for adding spice to your levels. Like, look at that shockwave at the beginning. But here, it doesn't really do much. It's just kind of there to show off that it exists. When I say that shaders spice up levels, I mean that you should literally treat them like spices. They should be used in moderation and in a way that actually adds something. Unless it's the chromatic shader, which is like this game's MSG. Moving on to the next cube part, there really isn't much to say here. There's spikes on the ceiling, which is nice, and it quickly transitions into a second spider portal to keep things moving. And gee, I sure hope nothing wacky happens in this spider part. Well, before we get to that, I want to talk about the portal itself, because it's covered by a blue gravity portal for some reason. At first I thought it was some kind of failsafe, but there's no possible way to enter this portal upside down, so it makes no sense. In fact, even in the super old leaked layout for this level, the portal is still there. Now, normally I wouldn't make a fuss about a misplaced portal like this, but in this case it also completely covers up the spider portal and makes it significantly more difficult to tell what you're actually changing into. You can still tell by looking at the very edge of the portal as well as the color of the particles, but it's kind of ridiculous that you have to do that in the first place. Heck, even the portal's label is covered up. This doesn't ruin the level by any means, but in general, when it comes to readability, small mistakes like these can make or break someone's attempt. And it's never fun to die to things that don't feel like your fault. Anyways, this takes us to that spider part, the one where you go sideways and do whatever this is. I yapped about this part quite a bit in my GD Mechanics video, and it was because I was genuinely concerned by how much it goes against the way Geometry Dash introduces new things. Consider this long build up to the first portal in Dryout, or this big arrow showing you how to flip in Cycles. This spider part is introducing a major new mechanic, but instead of introducing it, it feels more like it's kicking you in the nuts and saying, I don't know, figure it out. When I first saw the sneak peek for this level, I gave this part the benefit of the doubt and assumed it would be a lot more straightforward than it looked. Now, was that the case? Well...
I can't believe I'm playing through this right now. What is that?
Oh, what was it? He had to go around it. Dang it.
This is too complicated. We need to use the practice.
Oh, wait, what?
Like, what the frick? I'm saying it. This is so trippy, bro. Okay.
You know, it's funny how bad at the game those guys are. Don't they realize that all you have to do is click at this arrow, hit this button which drops the gate on the left, rotate yourself to climb up this wall which normally kills you, hit a second button that lowers these spikes, flip over to the gate, rotate yourself back onto the ground, and fall onto one last button that raises the ball portal, or do it the cool way by flipping twice here. And that's all in the span of a little over a second. Remember when this was a game about a square that moves right and jumps over spikes? Because honestly, I kinda miss that. Maybe we should review something else. The challenge opens extremely strongly, beginning right away with 2 tall jumps into a gravity pad. What makes this part so genius is that these 2 jumps directly parallel the number of syllables in Glubfub, the creator of this level. It serves as a reminder of your ongoing quest to prove your worthiness to him and gain access to whatever could be hiding in the basement. The level has a recurring theme of freedom where you could beat it the intended way, or hunt for parts that can be skipped. It's a lovely commentary on the idea of free will and the ability for humans to make choices. But the best part about this level is that the spider part is consistent. It doesn't have any of this, what the hell is going on? Well, I guess there's no hiding from my problems. Look, I don't get this part. Why is it here? What does it accomplish? That first spider part makes a ton of sense. It's straightforward and syncs well to the song. This section feels like it's only here to introduce going sideways, but if that's the case, why is it introduced this way? If we skip ahead in the level, there is an absolutely beautiful introduction to going sideways that's super understandable, works with the music, and feels awesome to play. Genuinely, what is this? Why is this? Why is it structured in the most confusing way possible with mysterious blue buttons and walls that look like they kill you? I'm not really upset, I just, for the life of me, don't understand why this part is here. I really don't. I thought a bit about how I would personally remake this part, and I settled on keeping it nice and simple and using it as an opportunity to introduce the spider orb that shows up later in the level. I think it works pretty nicely. Anyways, it's only uphill from here, and occasionally sideways. After whatever that was, you transition into a triple speed ball solely to hit a single dash orb, and then change back to normal speed cube. It's questionable, but it does sync, and it looks cool. I think for the sake of consistency, it would have been better to keep the dash in the spider, since I feel like throwing in a brief form change with zero gameplay steers a bit too much into flowy custom level territory. That being said, it's still a cool little part that's almost impossible to mess up, so I'm not too bothered by it. I just felt it was worth pointing out. The next cube part is probably the section I have the most to say about, just because of how much it throws at you. The gameplay isn't bad, but it becomes oddly confusing for an official level. It starts off with the part where you hit the blocks, and I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with it, because it's an idea that works very well. It's straightforward once you know how to do it, and it has great music sync, which goes a long way. It feels a bit more suited for a custom level than something in the main game, but sometimes it's nice to shake things up. In this case, I think the part works nicely with the music and the overall theme of the level, and even if it's a bit of a gimmick, it doesn't feel too out of place. That being said, I feel like there's a few issues with how this part was implemented. For one, you only have to hit 4 blocks, but you can hear 6 hits in the song. Take a listen. If you look at the original sneak peek for the level, not only are there 6 yellow blocks, but there's also 2 more blocks in total since they're a bit more squished. I imagine this was changed to make the level a little easier for new players, and as much as I appreciate that, I feel like it's the wrong thing to be nerfing. Because once you do understand this part, the missing 2 hits make it feel a touch less satisfying. Technically you can hit 1 extra time for a coin, but we'll get to that later. To me, the biggest problem here is once again the lack of communication, because it looks like you can slide across and skip this entire part, and there's nothing that explicitly tells you to hit these blocks. When I watched a couple less experienced YouTubers play through the level, this is something that they all fell victim to.
So we're only the ball for a moment. I press. Bro, what is going on? What else could I do?
Okay,
Granted, they both figure it out shortly after, but it's still weird to see them having this moment of, I literally don't know what to do here. One potential fix for this would be to simply add some arrows telling you to jump, like in a lot of custom levels. But then I remembered, the best way to make the player jump is by placing a spike. So here's my personal idea. It's a bit more traditional and you don't have to agree with it. I'm thinking, just place spikes under the yellow blocks, and also a couple on the red blocks to make it clear that they're bad. And maybe the spikes can be missing from the coin block. Actually, speaking of this coin, D tier for Dash. In case you don't know, all you have to do is hit this last red block, there's 0 skill involved, and the coin is basically free. Funny enough, if you look back at the 2.2 trailer from October, this coin is completely absent, which means that it was probably added in the last month or 2 before release, and it really does show. Some people think that hitting this last block is a reference to the trailer, but it doesn't make much sense to me. Gameplay wise, this coin really doesn't work, but the main reason I'm giving it a D grade instead of F is because of all the last ditch efforts to make it look like it does. Rather than the coin appearing out of nowhere, you're actually given 4 hints for it. Firstly, you can see the coin if you miss it. It's a big step up from some other coins I dare not bring up, so tell you what, D+. Secondly, there's a little counter above the coin. It shows that you've done 4 out of 5 of something. Thirdly, a bit of mental gymnastics. Hitting a red block causes you to get crushed by spikes, but by the time you hit this block, the spikes won't be able to reach you anymore. And finally, the skull's eyes on the block pulse green for a quick second. I really do appreciate how thoughtful and even creative these hints are, but at the same time, it doesn't actually fix the coin from a gameplay standpoint. To me, it feels more like a shield of, you're not allowed to complain about this coin because look, there's hints for it. I don't know, I feel like the coin isn't hard, it isn't fun, it isn't satisfying to collect, and the best solution would probably be to just restore the original 6 hits and move it somewhere else. But if you think you have a way to make this one work, please do give it a shot. So after that, we have one final gimmick before the drop, and it's these green sticky ceilings. In the span of a couple seconds, there's been a sideways spider, some weird blocks, and now this green stuff. If you're a less experienced player that felt extremely overwhelmed up to this point, I honestly don't blame you. It's so much more to process than any other level in the game. And that's assuming you played the previous levels, because a lot of people just skip right to the newest one. To me, this whole sticky ceiling thing feels like it's once again only there to show off that it exists. The gameplay itself is pretty straightforward, so this isn't a part that people will struggle with, but I'm more worried about the general existence of this mechanic. For those who haven't touched the editor, this part makes use of the new F block, which causes you to stick to any ceiling you touch by flipping gravity. This was obviously doable before 2.2 by simply using gravity portals or a formation of jump pads like this. The F block was added as a way to standardize this gimmick and make it a little easier to build, but in reality it just created a bigger problem. The F block is invisible. The reason this gimmick used to make sense was because it was an extension of pre-established mechanics. Normally you die when you hit a ceiling, but these pads indicate that you'll likely be flipped instead. But now, it's entirely up to the creator to decide how this should be communicated. For Dash, it's done with this green glow, but it's not mandatory. When it comes to custom levels, you'll never truly know if a ceiling will flip you until it's already happened. If there was a consistent visual for the F block, this part would be fine, but it was implemented in a way in which there will never truly be one. I think this part of Dash would feel a lot less overwhelming if it gave you a break and made use of some pre-established mechanics, but apparently everything needs to be shown off in this level. Anyways, one last thing which I don't want to spend too much time on, it's these potions that take the place of mini portals. I still don't understand why these couldn't have just been portals since that's already an established game mechanic, but I don't think it hurts the level all that much. I just wish it was maybe saved for a different section, since there's already so much going on in this Q part and all it does is fry people's brains even more. I'm a big sucker for consistency and I don't like seeing basic mechanics completely flipped around for no reason. That being said, I do think these potions are extremely good for platformer mode. Going through portals is kind of awkward in platformer, so these potions make for a really neat solution. In the very odd chance that Dash was trying to standardize that, I'm all for it. So this takes us to the drop, where we get this epic slow-mo zoom in and a voice reminding us what the game is called.
Geometry Challenge.
What else can I say here but 10 out of 10 drop. So far the whole level was building up to this and it does not disappoint. This leads into the new swing portal, which has some extremely basic gameplay to help you understand how the game mode works. This is also the first free fly section, which means that there's no ceiling or ground constraining you to a small area. And it works so smoothly. The visuals here are incredibly cool with brand new snow particles, zappers, and this cool skull guy. I absolutely love the zoom out halfway through, which gives you more room to see what's up ahead, but also lets you take in all of your surroundings. Even though there isn't much air decoration, this is one of those rare cases where the background in this level feels less like a solid image and more like an actual background, like you're powering through some sort of cool fortress in the hills. What I find most interesting about this part is the way the swing is introduced, because it's almost perfect. Stereo Madness, you have a ton of empty space to learn how to fly the ship. Cycles has big arrows for your first few ball flips. Theory of Everything intentionally removes ground spikes so you have more space to learn the UFO. And with Dash, if you don't click in the first second, you fall into the water and die. Except, not really, because this water doesn't kill you. Instead, you slide up this ramp and get launched, where it's pretty obvious that you should click to fly. Except not really, because this only works if you jump into the portal extremely late. If we take a look in the editor, the part that kills you is extended a little bit too far. So if you jump through the portal too early, there's a good chance that you'll hit it. This is most likely a mistake, at least I hope it is, but it's a shame because it ruins what would have otherwise been a great introduction to the game mode. It's not a big empty space to learn like Stereo Madness, but this is level 22, you don't need that anymore. Following the swing part is the first actual sideways section, and it is so cool. The way the camera rotates and your gravity changes could not be done more smoothly, and you have a ton of time to process the first jump, which is over this very bright and obvious lava pool. I really can't express how awesome this part plays, looks, and especially feels, which is why it's such a shame to see that spider part from earlier not only spoil the surprise, but introduce rotation in the most overwhelming and unintuitive way. Unlike that part, this section could not be easier to follow along with. It is a flawless transition into more straightforward gameplay. And don't even get me started on the music. Anyways, this part is short and you quickly transition into a... Wait a second. What portal is that? So, this is supposed to be a robot portal. More specifically, a combination of the robot, double speed, normal gravity, and regular size portal. And I can only think of 3 reasons for why it might be this orange thing. Number 1, it's too many portals, which makes no sense because this Q part also has 4 stacked portals. Worst case scenario, the gravity portal can be invisible. Number 2, it just looks cool. A case of, I made and programmed this cool spinny portal, so damn it, you're gonna appreciate it whether it hurts the level or not. Or number 3, withholding vital and clearly established information from the player is now a game mechanic. This is Geometry Dash, that impossible cube game. It was never supposed to be fair. This is such an easy fix, just make the portals visible, and make sure to get that gravity portal right on top of the robot so you think it's the wave and die. The actual robot part is pretty simple, with some time to react to the camera rotation followed by a jump or 2 into a ball portal. The screen-wide radial blur effect at the start of this section makes it feel a lot more energetic than it actually is, but I think that's why I love it so much. It's a fantastic and unobtrusive use of shaders. Towards the end of this part, there's a bit of freedom with how you enter the ball portal. You can optionally skip one of the platforms, or even the blue orb with the right timing. But I actually like this. It's harder than the intended way, so there's no harm in leaving it in for style points versus trying to prevent it with spikes. This robot part is also the cutoff for where the original 2.2 sneak peek ended, and to me, this is the first level where that actually means something. If it isn't obvious from how much I've been talking, there is so much going on in this first quarter of the level, and I think it's because it was made for the sneak peek specifically to impress people. Some parts do a good job, others not so much, but you can't deny that it makes for an awesome showcase. But with the sneak peek part over, I find that now Dash just becomes a regular level. There's much less pressure to show off new features, and now it's just about building a level that's fun to play. To me, everything past the sneak peek is Dash at its absolute best, and I can't wait to dig deeper into that. So let's keep going. The ballpark continues to expand on the gimmick of rotating gameplay, and it's once again done extremely smoothly. It's super easy to follow along with and feels like a short break from all the back-to-back chaos that's been thrown at you so far. It's fairly long for a level that's been rapidly changing your game mode, and it definitely helps you cool down. I really like this tight corridor vibe that this part is going for. It's a nice change of theme that still feels connected to the rest of the level. Also, shout out to the area trigger that lights up the spikes as you pass by. It's such a cool effect. I noticed that the platforms are glowing green here, which makes it visually consistent with the sticky ceilings from earlier. Mechanic-wise, it's completely different since you're the ball now, but visually it makes sense and it's a nice callback. I also want to point out this blue gravity portal, which is kind of genius because you're already normal gravity as you go through it, but you might not realize since the camera's upside down. But still, the change to gameplay rotation makes it look like the portal is actually doing something. And it saves the need to introduce some sort of new visual hint, since the rotation is so natural that it really does just feel like you're going through a gravity portal. I will point out that the sync here falls apart after the first few clicks, but as someone who sees this part as a short break section before the next burst of energy, I don't think it's a problem. It reminds me a little bit of the ball part in Hexagon Force, but it's probably because of that one slope. After the ball is a second swing section, which has very similar visuals to the first one, but now it's primarily orange instead of blue. As much as I enjoy when decoration changes throughout the level, I think this is okay since it ties the two swing parts together thematically, but differentiates them through smaller things like color and, surprisingly, temperature. The first swing section has snowflake particles and icy looking water, but now there's lava and everything is a lot more fiery. Not to mention, the orange fires in the blue part are now blue in the orange part. Everything here feels familiar, but not the same. And the same can be said about the gameplay. It would have been cool to see more done with the swing, but I also think that this back and forth pattern is where it shines the most given the way it's controlled. When I first played this level, I struggled to tell which way my gravity was starting off, but there's a good chance that it's a skill issue since you clearly go into the portal upside down. But other than that, everything's fine. It's just your average swing section with nothing too crazy. If you're colorblind, that is. Secret coin number 2. B tier, for best we're probably gonna get. See this zapper over here? It's a slightly different color. Flying through it reveals a secret upper area where you can snag a coin and then head back down. Personally, I think this coin would have been perfectly fine if it was visible from the get-go. It's a relatively tight gap to fly through, and if you're able to handle that, it's a sign that you're pretty good at controlling the swing. It's not too far off from the precise flying in Dryout or going through the wall in Electroman Adventures. If it's gonna stay visible, I guess it could be buffed to be a little tighter, but it's not that urgent. I know it's called a secret coin, but seeing this one turned invisible hurts a lot because it's a sign that coin placements are changing. If you look back at the 21 levels before Dash, there are no other coins that start invisible until you do something. The closest thing we have is the key in Deadlock, and a few coins that are simply not in the camera's view. Some coins are skill-based, some require memorization, but what ties them together is that they're always somewhere. Then, along came the spin-off games. Geometry Dash Meltdown and Geometry Dash Sub-Zero. These levels were made from the ground up in the modern editor with tons of new features, like this cursed artifact, the Alpha Trigger. A single object with the power to make anything vanish. At first, it was used for good. This second coin in Viking Arena is completely invisible, but there's a clever visual hint that most players would be drawn to. But then came Sub-Zero, and all hell broke loose. Next thing you know, coins are now invisible and fading into existence when you do the strangest tasks like skipping an orb or running into a random wall. These coins are no longer about showing off your skill as a player, they're about finding the tiny things wrong with the level and then getting a free coin for it. I mean, the first coin of this very level matches that definition perfectly. The second coin is an improvement since it takes a bit of skill to get, but the focus has been shifted. It doesn't feel like the tight swoop coin, it feels more like, congratulations, you know what colors are. Speaking of colors, there are some people who can't even see the difference here. Now, I'm red-green colorblind, which means that shades of those colors look more similar to me. For example, in the game Terraria, I struggle to differentiate the Iron Skin and Swiftness potions, which is kind of funny since the vast majority of potions have their own shape, but not these ones. Anyways, in this case, I have no trouble making out the difference in color here, but some people do struggle. I still strongly believe that the coin path should be completely visible, but if we're gonna do it this way, why not add some kind of shape-based hint here? Maybe it could be smoke particles or the lack of an animation, but just something. It's kinda sad that we went from colorblind friendly portals to this. Long story short, I like the coin for its gameplay, hate it for the decision to make it invisible, but I'll give it a pass solely because I'm actually able to brainstorm ways to fix it, unlike the last one. Next up is yet another spider part. Nothing too fancy here, it's just a quick music sync bit like every other spider section in this level. Gameplay could not be more straightforward, but at least it's kinda fun. That takes us to this cube section, which plays around with some dash orbs followed by 2 uses of the new spider orb. Some people argue that this is where the level's visuals start to fall off, but I think it's just as good as every other part. There's so many little details everywhere, you just have to stop yourself from tuning them out. Also, official levels have never had that much air decoration, which I'm not too bothered by. It gives the level a very vanilla feel, because that's literally what it is. Side note, shout out to the camera work in this part, the Y position is fixed in place and it works so nicely. I sort of like that first dash orb since it's extremely clear where you need to release and it doesn't use any S-blocks, which are the invisible objects that stop your dash. This should really be the standard for how dash orbs are used, but S-blocks have become so common that the bar keeps getting lower and lower. I like this teleport portal a lot because along with being chained to the dash orb, it's simply a teleport portal. There's no weird gimmicks going on here, it's just the same way a teleport portal has always worked, and sometimes that's all you need. The teleport does secretly reset your gravity, but I actually think that's more intuitive than staying upside down. The second dash orb is simply a diagonal boost upwards, but it's placed at a perfect point in the song and has an awesome visual to go along with it. It's so simple, but still makes you feel really cool doing it. This one does have S-blocks to stop your dash, but they're mostly just there to smoothen the transition since you have to wait for the camera to pan up. Finally, the spider orbs here are spider orbs. It's pretty hard to mess up here since it's clear your gravity is going to switch, so if you're not sure what the purple orbs are, your brain will just swap them out for blue ones. And really, you get the exact same gameplay from it. That's not to say that these should be blue orbs, because that's like swapping a spider part with the ball. This bit is okay, but it lacks any sort of meaningful music sync. Anyways, next up is this mysterious hole in the ground. Okay, no, that's too predictable. It's actually this. Before I talk any further, let me start by playing back this whole section.
Geometry Dash.
The first time I played this part, I thought the song completely cut out, and I don't think I'm alone in that. It gets very silent at the beginning of this build-up, but in turn it also makes it more exciting. It's a little off-putting, but I'm not here to complain about the music, especially when the rest of the song has been so good. In all honesty, I was expecting a single screen section in this level just because it's such an iconic thing to come out of 2.2. The idea was tested out with press start and even in another sneak peek before it, and it works really well. This time though, there's gameplay rotation involved. I think it's decently clear how this part of the level works, but I can identify 2 notable flaws that make it a touch more confusing than it needs to be. Firstly, it looks like you're running into a wall that will kill you, but given the moving arrows, the rotations earlier in the level, and the fact that there's nowhere else to go, you should be able to tell that something's going to happen. Either way, I think it needs some extra visual. In Super Mario World, this exact gimmick is triggered by running into one of these pink triangles, and I think a decoration like that would work just fine. Alternatively, maybe a half pipe like this would communicate it even more easily. Second issue is these spiky blocks that prevent you from breaking the level's sync by jumping. In my opinion, they just don't look enough like obstacles. In fact, they reuse the texture from those blocks at the start of the level, so it almost seems like you're supposed to hit it to trigger something. This would probably work better as a saw blade, but I don't even think there are any saws in this level, so maybe just something spikier. Aside from that, the gameplay here is solid. It's just a bunch of jumps over some easy pits, but it works surprisingly well for this build-up. Visually, this whole part looks a little empty, but there's actually a lot of really cool stuff going on here. For one, this is the first mid-level background change in an official level. Again, I feel like most creators now just think of the background as an empty, wasted space, but in reality, it's a background. It's specifically there so you don't need to build one yourself. and the one in this part of the level works really nicely. One detail I really like is this glitch effect on the first rotation, which syncs with the music and feels like some sort of disturbance that's causing the rotated gameplay in the first place. If you pay very close attention to the background, you'll also see some blocky dust crumbling from the ceiling like something big is about to happen. Oh, and fun fact, this is the first time in the level where touching a surface doesn't cause it to light up or react in some way. But it's not that necessary for a chill build-up like this. When it comes to picking up these numbers in sync with the countdown to the drop, I like it. It works, and it's kind of fun, especially how the numbers center themselves on the screen once you pick them up. You also have to do that last leap directly into the 1, which is cool. From here, you get an absolutely sick transition where you turn into some kind of glowing ball before the wall smashes open perfectly in time with the most fire beat drop yet. It is so cool, and another really great unobtrusive showcase of what 2.2 can do for transitions, though I do think the way it actually works is too funny not to share.
2, 1. Geometry Dash.
Oh yeah, there's a coin in this part. And to get it, all you have to do is click 6 times during the transition. Not to a beat or anything, just whenever you feel like it. I was going to give this an F for my coin tier list, but then I checked that row and saw that most of the Fs have visible coins and some gameplay attached to them. So this one is going down even lower, maybe next to that one from Can't Let Go. I could go into detail on why I dislike this one so much, but I feel like it's kind of obvious. Not to mention, I already brought up the whole invisible coin thing over in the swing part. This coin is completely hidden, and the only sign of its existence is an orange pulse every time you click the screen. Basically, it's the third coin of Power Trip again, but during a part that seems like a cutscene, so seriously, why would you even click? I'm sure this coin can be improved by adding more visuals, like maybe start the coin half visible and reel it in every time you click. But similar to the first coin, no amount of hints will improve it from a gameplay perspective, which again, is just clicking a few times with zero risk. It's lazy, it's dumb, and it's yet another sign that coin placements are only getting worse and worse. Also, as a little exercise, I decided to try moving the coin to an entirely new spot. It's not amazing by any means, but here's what I came up with. So next is this triple speed ship part with a super epic part of the song to go along with it. It also continues RobTop's tradition of ship parts where you fly through 2 moving walls that have an arrow between them. For some reason, this has been really common ever since the spin-off games, and I kinda love it. It's become iconic. This ship part is pretty easy compared to other parts of the level, unless you're playing on mobile, in which it suddenly becomes Microsoft PowerPoint. It's probably because of the sheer number of effects going on during this part, which is ironic because people say this is where the level gets kind of empty. I think it looks about the same though. In fact, we even have these cool windy speed particles that perfectly complements this part's triple speed. For some reason, there's a tint effect that changes the color of everything, including your icon, and it's excessive. I think there would have been better effects that work here, or maybe none at all if it's causing lag for some players. But chances are, the lag is coming from this area trigger part that moves a heck ton of pillars as you fly through them. It's a great effect, and it's one of the highlights of the level for me because it just feels so damn good. You see these 2 triggers? They actually control all the block movement during this part, and that's super impressive. But it likely requires more calculations than a line of move triggers, so it's probably the culprit for the lag. Either that or the giant industrial district above it. Side note, as easy as this part is, I often find myself overshooting on the height, only to watch my ship slowly drift down into a spike with nothing I can do to stop it. It could very well be played off as a skill issue, but I also noticed a lot of other players having the same problem. So maybe I would lower these top spikes, or cheat a little bit by making the gravity slightly stronger during the descent. Also, another thing, since the first coin in this level sucked, I tried sneaking a coin into this part as well. Before we move on to the robot, I want to quickly point out one last thing since I wasn't sure when to bring it up. All 22 levels in Geometry Dash have one thing in common, and it's that they have a ship part, and this level is no exception. But you know what this level doesn't have? A UFO part. In fact, it is the first level to not have one since it was introduced in Theory of Everything. Now look, I get it. There's 8 game modes now, and it's hard to fit all of them in a single level. After all, Fingerdash had a similar situation with being the first level to not have the ball since Cycles. But this time it's different, because if you factor in the 3 spin-off games, there's only one level with the UFO. Space Pirates. The one that solely exists as a tutorial for the game mode. And what makes this even funnier is that there are mirror portals in both Striker and Knockem, meaning that yes, lately the mirror portal has been getting more official usage than the UFO game mode. It doesn't bother me that much since I'm not too crazy about the UFO, but it's a sad day for all 7 people who think it's the best game mode. Okay, coming up next is this robot section, unless you prefer the ship, in which you can fly under the portal and get stuck for all eternity. For some reason, a lot of faith was put into these force blocks, but they don't do anything. The robot here is somewhat uneventful. It's just a few simple hops with fans that rotate you sideways. It makes me happy seeing rotated gameplay get this much usage throughout the level, since it helps it feel like a core theme, which it is. It's executed well here, and the fan is a perfect visual to use. I'm sure a gravity portal would have also worked fine, but this is the fun way. Even though this is where I think the music gets really good, there's practically no sync during this entire robot part. I kind of see this as another one of those less synced filler parts of the level, like the first robot and the cube before the build-up part. It's just there to have some gameplay at all, but that's fine because it's literally how building a level works. Sometimes it's nice to have a part of the level that's just a part of the level. I won't deny that this bit does look a little rushed, but upon further investigation, it seems like it has the same level of decoration as most other parts. That being said, it doesn't go above and beyond in any way. Now it's just completely average. I guess there's these big chains now and more snow particles in the background. There's also a glitch effect here which actually kinda works. It's less random than changing your icon color, and dare I say it even looks good. Overall, this whole section is nothing too mind-blowing. I'll still take it though, considering levels in the game used to look like this. Finally, we enter this mysterious glowing wall and get this nice circle transition to lead us into the epic tower part. The background changes once again to really set the theme, and the colors pop out more than ever. There's a big pool of lava at the bottom, which I kind of expected to rise, but I don't actually have much of a preference on that. This whole bit once again feels a lot like what Sub-Zero did, but in the good way, like it's expanding on everything it did right. It consists of 4 super quick back and forth sprints, each separated by a short pause as you move up to the next floor. The platforming here is pretty rapid fire, but that's a good thing since it perfectly matches up with the song. In fact, just roll it. So as far as gameplay goes, I don't think this part does much, but it doesn't have to. It just needs to look and feel cool, and it does a super good job at it. Over on the bottom floor, there's a couple of platforms that move downwards even if you clearly jump over them, and I think the gameplay should have been restructured instead of just rolling with this. I get that you need to touch a lot of surfaces for music sync, but still, if there's one part of the level that feels a bit rushed to me, it's that. Second floor, there's not much to comment on here. If this part was a drink, it would be tap water. Floor 3, we get a little spicy with a wave part. There's not much going on in it, but it works well with the music, it feels super cool, and I love the way you can see the sections slowly scroll into view and think, yo, there's a wave part next! My only complaint is that visually, nothing happens here. Not even any sort of color change. It feels a bit lifeless for what's supposed to be one of the strongest parts of the song. In fact, you could say this about the entire tower part. The visuals are good, but aside from the platforms, it's completely static. Nothing changes. I like that all the gameplay is clearly laid out and never moves, but at the very least, do something with the background or the color palette. Use a shader or two, just anything. Finally, the level ends with this green orb into one last fan, before you're sucked into this skull doubling as the level's end portal. The fan is a great solution to making sure you end the level perfectly centered on the screen, and I would much rather have that than an orb which randomly reverses your direction. Fans are just cool, I hope they catch on some more. The skull over here marks the first custom ending in an official level, and in my mind, it's exactly what it needs to be. It's not over the top in the slightest, and it still follows through with the normal level complete animation. It's just as familiar as always with a very slight spin on it, and it's a good starting point for the inevitable explosion of custom endings we're probably gonna see in future levels. Also, it just makes sense because it's the peak of the tower, and like, how are you gonna end on the right side of the screen? The best feedback I can give for this ending is that it should look more like an exit, like you're actually leaving the tower. Right now you just land on a random platform and the level's over. It doesn't feel like you escaped or anything. In fact, it's the opposite because you're getting thrown into a skull of all things. Skulls have been a recurring theme throughout the level and more importantly in Geometry Dash in general. So this begs the question, what do they represent? Are you a skull? Is there a bad ending? Or are skulls just there because they look cool? I'm sure there's a theory or two that can be cooked from this. Overall, I think the biggest flaw of this final tower is the amount of waiting in it. The breaks between gameplay feel like they're longer than they need to be, and it definitely kills the hype just a little bit. I decided to hop into the editor and see if I can improve things, and while the camera work is far from perfect, this is my concept for a rework of this section. Oh yeah, and while making this, I discovered what the level actually does when you're off screen, and it's so silly, I love it. Even though there's teleport triggers and all this cool new editor stuff, you literally just slide up a ramp. Anyways, that is Dash and everything I have to say about it. Regardless of if you like it or not, you can't deny that it's a super creative level filled with tons of interesting ideas and a very pretty visual style. With every update in this game, the levels get exponentially more impressive, and I think Dash shows it more than ever. So with all that yapping done and my voice absolutely dead, is Dash a good level? I don't know, you tell me. In my opinion, the answer is not only yes, it's absolutely. When I played this level for the first time, I loved it, and I immediately took note of everything that made me feel that way. But is the level perfect? Well, no, there's definitely a couple of blunders, some bigger than others, but you know what? That's okay, because every level has its flaws. I'm sure there's things I disliked that other people enjoyed, or even the other way around. To me, the biggest weaknesses of the level were the overload of new mechanics at the beginning, and especially the coin placements. But its strengths were the way rotation was used after the initial spider part, and the overall sight readability past where the sneak peek ends. Not to mention, the visuals are gorgeous. The biggest reason that I point out my issues with the level is because they serve as great lessons for level designing and balancing. I hope that creators can at the very least consider some of the points I made when they work on their own projects, whether it's trying out the things I liked or treating the things I didn't as a lesson on what not to put in your Geometry Dash level. Now here's something I wanted to quickly bring up. Should this level be rated insane? Personally, I think that everything past the weird start of the level is around the same difficulty and readability as Finger Dash. And I find Finger Dash easier than levels like Electrodynamics and Hexagon Force, so I think it should be demoted to harder. But Geometrical Dominator is harder, and I find that level a bit trickier, so I guess that one should be insane? And then I also think Electrodynamics should be an easy demon, so maybe it's Finger Dash that's graded correctly and Electrodynamics that isn't. Okay, you know what? My head hurts. The difficulty system in this game isn't exactly amazing. Still, my gut feeling is that the two Dash brothers should be rated harder. Oh, and one more thing before I go. If you're interested in the edits I made to the level throughout the video, I've actually uploaded it as a full level to my account. Don't treat this as some kind of perfect version. It's just a few very rough edits I made that I think would improve the level a little bit, at least for me. Anyways, if you're somehow still here, thanks for attending my lecture ? I can proudly say that you've made it through everything I will ever have to say about this silly little level that took 7 years of procrastination to make. In conclusion, it's a good level, but sadly, it will never live up to be as good as the challenge.